Hello, everybody. Tracy, Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president of JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures podcast, sponsored by the JDog Foundation. Our podcast gives veterans, mil spouses, active military members, military family members, and patriotic military supporters a voice in the veteran space to speak about their service, how they're affecting their communities post-service, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has shaped their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I am so happy to have the pleasure to speak with Patrick Trujillo. Patrick served in the United States Marine Corps, where he deployed 5 times, twice in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. After departing the military, Patrick attended the Warrior Scholar Project as a participant in 2017. He also interned at the organization where he worked on the marketing and communications team. Currently, Patrick serves as Warrior Scholar Project's marketing and communications manager. Patrick believes strongly in the mission and appreciates the opportunity to give back to other veterans. Patrick earned his BS in Business Management from San Diego State University in 2021 and credits much of his academic success to the Warrior Scholar Project. Hello, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. And thank you for your service to our country, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
So, um, a lot to talk about here. I'm really excited for our discussion, but I would first like to ask you what inspired you to join the Marine Corps?
Uh, well, I don't know if it's typical. I like to say I was a typical teenager. But I lived in a very Patrick-centric world. Um, you know, I, I believed the world revolved around me and, you know, I just, I, yeah, I was a selfish teenager, right? And that's the honest truth. I just remember always wanting to be in the military. The truth is, I wanted to join the Army, but Marine Corps recruiters were better, so shout out to them. But I just at one point in my life, I had graduated high school. I had a little bit of time in between when I actually joined the Marine Corps, and I just remember thinking like it's now or never. I
Right.
wasn't getting any younger, and it was just one of those decisions where I'm either going to do it like today, I'm going to go down there and start talking to the recruiters, or I'm never going to do this. So part of it is a bit of patriotism, right? There's a little bit of that. Well, there's a lot of that. Uh, and then I graduated June 2001, and 9/11 happened shortly after. I would love to say like I was like in the office right after that happened. That wasn't my story. It took a little bit of
Right.
time. I had to grow up a little more. But then I decided it was, like I said, it was finally time to give back, and to be part of something like bigger than myself, because that's really what it came down to is I just wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself.
Right. That's great. I love that story. It's hard to figure out where your next steps are after high school, right? Being a young adult, you know. Um, so is there a particular aspect or moment from your service that stood out as being impactful in a positive way for you?
I believe that occurred very early on in my military career, specifically in boot camp. And
Hmm.
it really ties back into what I just talked about of being a selfish teenager. I was a little bit older when I went to boot camp. I had already been on my own for a little bit. I had rent to pay, car payments, insurance. I was on my own. So the disconnect from my, my home life or my family life, like I didn't feel it as much as, an 18-year-old who just graduated. So I remember one day we were doing something dumb, right? So, something dumb.
Okay.
And they were the drill instructors were having us do, the same thing over and over. And like what I realized was we kept having to do it over and over because there were people that were slow. In particular, this one person. And they never said we couldn't help, right? They never said we couldn't help other people to achieve like their desired end state.
Hmm.
And part of it was I was tired of playing the games that you play while in boot camp. But the other part of it is I saw how much that person was struggling. And, with I went over and I assisted. I assisted as best as I could. And once that person had met the standard, we were done. And that was like the moment that clicked, like it's not about me. The military
Ah,
service, my military service from that point on wasn't about me. Our team, our platoon, our boot camp, our boot camp class, we were only as fast as our slowest, recruits at the time or Marines when I got to the fleet. And so like to me, that was a defining moment because that was like the beginning where I actually understood there's there's more to life than just the world I'm living in, and I can be of service by, helping others because I was able to do things a little bit easier than most. Part of it was my age, and part of it was just my ability to overcome
hmm,
obstacles rather easily. But then now it wasn't just benefiting me, right? I was able to just pay it forward by helping others. So that was like a
right.
defining moment for me, but also in becoming an adult and a active, respectful member of society, but more so the Marine Corps.
Right, right. I love that. What an amazing lesson learned. Um, you know, the fact that you got it that quickly, I think is a credit to yourself. Some people might not have picked up on it as quickly, but you did, and I think that's amazing. And they say that it's about who's on your right, who's on your left. It's about your team, your platoon. It's all encompassing. It's a like full circle, like kind of the circle of life of the military. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me, but yeah, no, I
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah, it's not. It's a beautiful thing. The military did wonders for me, and I am
right.
so glad that I made that decision to join the Marine Corps.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad that it stood out as being so impactful for you. That's awesome. Um, So I want to talk about your transition. How was that for you, and how did you find Warrior Scholar Project? Because it kind of played a role for you in the transition out of the military into figuring out your next steps, correct?
Yes, Warrior Scholar Project was pivotal for me in my transition from military service to where I'm at today.
Hmm.
And so I think the first part of your question was what was that transition like?
Right.
It was very challenging for me because if it were up to me, well, let me rephrase that. If circumstances were different, I would still be in the Marine Corps right now. But I'm not, and I'm okay with that. 9 years removed, I'm okay with that. But the day I got my DD 214, I cried. I cried because I didn't want to get out of the Marine Corps, but
Mm-hmm.
I got out. Life happens, and that was the case for me. Life happened. I didn't. I was a really good Marine, and I excelled at my job. And I did well throughout my entire career, but just life happened, and I found myself out of the Marine Corps. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk about this a lot when people ask me this question. I struggled because I didn't have a plan B. My goal
Oh.
was to do 30 years and
Mm-hmm.
retire an old, crusty, maybe grumpy, maybe, probably a little bit grumpy Master Guns. Uh, so I didn't have a plan B, right? And that's kind of how I live my life. And it's a blessing and a curse because the plan B is an excuse for why plan A doesn't work. And that's just my mindset, right? And
Right.
like I said, a blessing and a curse. And in that case, it was a curse because all of a sudden I had my DD 214 and I didn't want to be out of the Marine Corps. But the truth is, so this isn't the case anymore. But a lot of who I was my identity was tied up in the Marine Corps. That's where I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to grow. That's where I grew up. I
Right.
talked about that selfish, self-centered, egocentric teenager, and tying it back into, the first real lesson that I learned was, it's others before self. And then, like fast forward and I lost all of that, right? I lost my tribe. I lost my community. I lost,
Hmm.
I felt like I lost everything. But
Yeah.
I was stuck in the pity party of the cards that life dealt me.
Mm,
But the truth is, it wasn't really
right.
hindsight. With age comes wisdom, and hindsight is 2020. So, like looking back
Sure.
on it, it wasn't as tragic as I thought it was.
Hmm.
But I had friends, that had already been through the transition from military service to, the civilian life, and I called a buddy of mine one day, and uh, we were talking, and he let me pout to him for a little while, and then after a while, he goes, "Hey, I heard about this program," because he like, what are your plans? Was one of the questions. I was like, I don't know.
Hmm. You're right.
Um, I don't know. College, like pursuing an education wasn't on my mind because I hadn't been in school for a long time, and as far as jobs go and like what that transition like, how to, if there were jobs that aligned with my military service, well, there were a lot of jobs that did. However, if I was able to do those jobs in the civilian world, like physically capable of doing them, I would have just still been in the Marine Corps. So I felt like,
Right.
I felt like the hoop I had to jump through was very narrow, but in reality, it wasn't. I just needed to, seek guidance, like look for resources, and talk to my friends. And my buddy brought up this program called Warrior Scholar Project, and contempt prior to investigation. It's like, come on, man! Like, what am I gonna learn in 1 week? Like, what could they possibly teach me? And he just he kind of did some reverse leadership on me, and he asked me some questions like, well, why don't you want to go, or what's your reservations about this? And then he said, what were if the roles were reversed, what would you be telling me? And I said,
Oh.
yeah, right. So good role reversal here. And I said, damn well what I'd be telling you. I'd be telling you to get your butt to that course. And he said, well, maybe you should get your butt to that course. So that's what I
Okay.
did.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Um, so can you tell me a little bit about the program? I know you eventually interned and now you're the marketing and communications manager. So how does the program work?
Yeah. So, you know, Warrior Scholar Project, it's from personal experience, it's life changing, right? For me, it was life changing. Through the programs they offer, which I'll talk about, and through, just through guidance and really giving me back my community. They also helped me find that confidence, that same level of confidence that I had when I was in the Marine Corps. And so, what Warrior Scholar Project is, we call them academic boot camps because why not? We are a veteran service organization who serves the
Right.
military. So,
Right.
what
Yeah,
what's something we
perfect.
could all relate to? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what it looks like is this year, so this summer, right? Let me kind of back up. We were founded in 2011, and our first boot camp happened in 2012, and it was a single boot camp at Yale University. And since then, we've grown, and we have 24 staff members, full-time staff members, many of which are veterans, but we work with this summer 19 different campuses all across the country. So if you go to our website, warrior-scholar.org, you can see all of our campus partners. And we host three different types of academic boot camps. They're all a week long, and we focus on humanities, STEM, and business. And so, what we do is we bring we serve the enlisted community. So whether they're active duty service members, enlisted service members, or they're veterans, enlisted veterans, what we do is they go on our website, they fill out an interest form. Our outreach team talks to them, and they fill out an application, and if they accept their offer, then what they do is they go on campus, and whichever campus they're assigned to. So again, you could look at the 19 campuses on our website.
Hmm.
So whatever campus they get assigned to, they are there on campus with 14 other enlisted service members or veterans, and they're living in the dorms. They're eating in the campus dining facilities. they're getting lectures from host institution staff. So the humanities side, they focus on, American democracy and writing. Business is focused on case studies and, business fundamentals, and STEM is focused on, physics and Python. But what it is we are trying to introduce them to reintroduce them, right, or acclimate them
Hmm.
to the academic environment, and we're trying to take the skills that they acquired in the military and help tweak or tailor them to be successful in an academic environment. And so we do that by essentially teaching them how to learn again, right, or in a new way,
Right.
and that will benefit them. And the most amazing part of our programs is we hire, we call them fellows, but what they are is successful student veterans who are also alumni of our program who come back every year. So those fellows, right? They're seasonal employees who are currently enrolled in community college, four-year universities, state colleges, private institutions, Ivy Leagues, whatever that looks like, and they come back to give back, right? And that is what makes our programming so special is, you'll have three fellows who are current student veterans
Hmm.
sharing their experiences. Well, you know, on top of that, you're getting the instruction from, from the staff at Caltech, from the staff at Stanford, from the staff at Amherst, at Williams, at William and Mary, and, Notre Dame. The list goes on. University of
Right.
Chicago,
Sure.
Yale, Harvard, right? So like it's just this unique experience that again, it's life changing. It's life changing, and it's it's free. We are a nonprofit, a 501(c)(3)
Okay.
nonprofit, and it's free for the enlisted community. All we ask is that they pay for their travel to whichever campus they're accepted into, because, well, got to have skin in the game, right? We got to
Sure.
have skin in
Right.
the game. So, yeah, it's fascinating. So, I can speak from personal experience the impact that it had on my life.
Hello, viewers and listeners. I would like to introduce you to the JDog Foundation, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit dedicated to the prevention of veteran suicide and the healing of veterans' mental health. 100% of all proceeds received by the JDog Foundation goes directly to several foundations focused on the mission of saving veterans' lives. Each partner is hand-selected by our executive director, Jerry Flanagan, with input from the assistant director, Tracy Flanagan, and the JDog Foundation board members. Our foundation's motto: saving lives, one veteran at a time. Go to jdogfoundation.org to take a look at everything that we're doing there and the organizations that we're partnered with. You can also donate, and there's also a support line if you're in need of help. Thanks. Check us out. jdogfoundation.org. What is like the end state of the week? So they come in, they have this amazing week. At the end of the week, is there a graduation? How does the program wrap up? Is it do I mean, what if they go through the program and they're like, okay, yeah, this is a great program, but college isn't for me. I mean, does that happen? Or tell me some of the outcomes, I guess, of what happens at the end of the week.
I think, right, there's always a book answer. And the book answer
Sure.
is the textbook answer is we are trying to make them informed consumers of higher education, which I'll kind of expand on that here in a minute. But the truth is we are just trying to get them to campus to show them that, they do belong, they are capable, right? And their presence in the classroom, it's needed. Right. And so our programming, when I walked away from it, and I like to, when people ask me questions, I like to share based on my personal experience. And what I walked away from there was with the confidence, knowing that no matter where I went to school, I didn't even know I wanted to go to school. So there's the first thing.
Right.
So,
Okay.
you know, yeah. So like we serve different populations of veterans. Maybe you don't know you want to go to school. Maybe you do and you need a refresher. And maybe you do and you just like, you want to experience the campus beforehand. But for me, I just remember there was a shift in my way of thinking. First, I was like, I knew I wanted to go to school. But second, I knew that no matter where I decided to go, I was going to be successful, because going through that week, The little every little lesson they taught me, I took a little piece from everything that they shared with me, and I put it in my pocket. It became part of my toolkit, right? My to how to be successful student veteran, and it instilled that confidence in me that I needed. Right? Essentially, it was that kick in the butt that I needed to know that I could do this. Uh, so, again, you asked us a question, or part of the follow up of your question was, what happens if like they decide they don't want to go to school. I've actually had experience with that, where I was the staff member at one of the campuses, and at the end of every course, I say, how many people here, realize that school isn't for them? And it's I've had maybe two hands out of the up
Okay.
to 100, right? But the one person raised their hand, and I said, okay, why? And they stated their case, and I'm like, cool, that's awesome. I'm glad you figured that out here in this one week, as opposed
Right.
to applying to college, potentially using your benefits and then having to pay that money back because you decided to withdraw or whatever the case. So, but more importantly, it's what is your plan now then? Right? We can walk away from
Hmm.
here knowing we don't want college isn't for us, but what is your plan? And they had a well thought out plan. And so I was able to still continue to mentor, say, okay, like, well, what have you thought about, X, Y, and Z? So just because, there's those outliers of people, I mean, I won't even call them outliers, just because there's, people come and they may decide that college isn't for them. One, again, to reiterate, it only took a week to figure it out. And maybe it's just not a right now thing. Maybe it's in the future, but right now I have other things I need to focus on.
Right.
Um, but two, it's continued support whether they decide to pursue higher education or not. They become part of our alumni network, and so we've served over 2,500 veterans, and we use Slack. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that communications platform, but we have
Yeah.
Slack channels where they're part of. There's a main station, and then there's like Ask a Veteran, ask job or internships. Like there's just like there's dozens of channels that they could become part of, where we're now relying on our community that we've provided them, the community that we provided them to seek answers, to ask questions, and more so just to check in with one another. And that's
Sure.
powerful.
Yeah. Well, that's really awesome. So, have you ever had an alumni come back and speak to a class that decided education wasn't for them?
Um, I've never experienced where I've only had like one or two people where they've made that
Okay.
choice right in that week.
Right.
I've never had like an
Hmm.
entire cohort of 15. Because so I've never actually experienced that, but we do have our fellows, again, our MTT fellows, our mobile training team fellows, we call them peer mentors. Those are the individuals that travel with the cohorts throughout the summer, or they're
Oh,
assigned to a
okay.
cohort, and so they're there. They are at those locations to, one, it's a form of like career progression for them as well,
Hmm.
because now it's like an entry level position for them. But two, they're there to share their experience. Our CEO, Ryan Pavel, he calls them the secret sauce of Warrior Scholar Project, and I have to agree with that. They are what makes our programming so great, because maybe I am that participant that is doubtful, or I have a lot of questions, but I'm not comfortable speaking to the professors or speaking to like even myself, who's a full-time staff member. But I am comfortable speaking to somebody, essentially my peer, right? Somebody
Sure.
who's
Yeah.
on, I don't know, I don't think on the same level as the proper terminology, but I can't really think of how else to say it. So our fellows are there to share their experiences with them, and
Hmm.
encourage them when they need encouraging, provide information when they need information provided, and then just be an ear to listen to when they need an ear to listen to, right? And it's
Sure.
they are the subject matter experts because they are currently enrolled in college, and
Hmm.
their experiences are invaluable.
Right, right. I love that. I love that there's this continuing, network of fellows, as you say, that people have gone through can tap into and ask the hard questions and listen to their experience and gain insight. I mean, I think that's awesome. Um, so, as you say, there's it's this 1 week program is free to veterans. they just pay for travel expenses. So how do you function? Grants, donations, all of the above?
Yeah, so because we are a nonprofit, specifically a 501(c)(3, we have amazing we have amazing donors. We have an amazing development team. Right? Our development team is awesome because they, they get us what we need in order to make these boot camps happen. We have a great team all around, but to answer your question, yeah. So we have, there's grants, there's grants that we get, there's individual donors, there's corporate company donors, and then a lot of our partners, right? It's a partnership. I'm not on that side of the house, so I can't speak too much to it, but we partner with specific campuses for a very specific reason. So, it takes a village, and
Sure.
in our
Yeah.
case, right, it's having a huge impact on the student veteran community. So we're grateful for everybody. That it's a dollar is one is greater than zero, right? So even if it's an
Yeah.
individual
Right.
donor who gives a dollar, one is greater than zero. So thank you. So yeah, that's how we do it, right? Because you and I both know nothing is really free in this
Yeah.
world.
Sure.
So the
Sure.
fact that we have such amazing donors and such an amazing development team, and we get the grants that we do, like it's cool. It's powerful. And I'm glad to be that I'm able to be here I'm glad I was able to experience it from multiple different angles, right? As a participant, an alumni. I actually did the fellowship role for 2 years while I was enrolled in college, and then now as a full-time staff member. So
Oh, wow.
it's really cool to see that, you know, there are organizations out here that really do, one, care, but two, actually have an impact.
Right.
They have an impact on, they do what they're saying they're going to do, and so that matters.
Right. Wow, that's awesome that you kind of sort of evolved where you went through the program, were a fellow, and now you're the marketing communications manager. That's amazing. That's awesome. This has been great. Thank you so much for all this information and for sharing all that you did. But Patrick, you know, we come to that time in the podcast where I have to ask you the very important question. What is your tactical treasure that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so my tactical treasure would be, uh, don't let pride get in the way of your success. And what I mean by that is it's okay to say I don't know, and it's okay to ask for help. Right? I didn't know that because I was brought up a certain way, and I saw it as a sign of, something, right? Something
Hmm.
maybe of weakness. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Maybe of something negative, but the truth is, if I didn't say I don't know, or I don't continue to say I don't know when I don't know, or I don't ask for help, then I can't thrive. And once I figured that it's okay to do those two things, I my life my my transition became easier, excuse me, and my my career, my post-military career has I've thrived because of it. So
Oh,
don't
wow.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
it.
That's awesome. I love that. So, yeah, a transformed man you are. That's amazing.
Well, it's a work in progress.
We're all a work in progress, trust me. But I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. That's an awesome tactical treasure. I love that. So, can you share a little bit more, maybe along those lines, and shout out any advice for fellow veterans, navigating that military to academia transition?
Yeah, first and foremost, sign up for a Warrior Scholar Project Bootcamp. I mean, come
Yeah,
on, let's
right.
let's be real.
It's only a
And
week, right? It's only a week
yeah,
out of your life, right?
it's
That could
only
be
a
life
week, and
changing, right?
yeah, yeah. But I mean, in all seriousness, I mean it, right? Especially like, maybe even if you're like, I don't want to go to college. Let's give it a shot. Take a week out of your summer to give it a shot. Maybe you do, and you need that refresher. Or maybe you just want to get back on campus to be, to remember what it was like. So there's that, but also, tying back into what I said when you asked about the tactical treasure is it's to ask for help. I had to once I found my community, right, I had to find a new community, people I wanted to be around, and there's a saying, right? If I hang out with four idiots, I'm likely to be the fifth. So I surround my people. I mean, right?
I've never heard that saying, but I love it. That's
So
great.
So I would suggest they surround themselves with people that have what they want, and that that they can ask questions to, look for guidance to, but also be there as a support for them as well, right? So being around like-minded individuals is key. And then once I got to college, I found myself, it was really easy to exclude myself from everything because I'm the older guy, and I'm not 18 or I'm not 22. But that comes back to my pride. So and once I was able to, like, the leveling of my pride to bring myself down a little bit, I was able to become a member of my class and not just the guy sitting in the back, right?
Right.
Um, so just it's okay. It's okay. You will, like I said, you are capable of doing whatever it is you want to do. If it's formal education or maybe you go into the trades, you're capable, you belong, and you will be an asset.
Mm.
Um, just ask for help. Ask for help. That's the biggest thing. Ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love it. And maybe it's not the worst thing to have a plan B, right?
There you go, right? I'm learning. With age
I
comes
know.
wisdom, and it's slowly over time.
I know. And I say that because my husband is king of the plan B. Because, you just never know. Life happens, right?
Yeah,
So, having a plan B is just not a bad idea at the end of the
I
day.
I agree.
Oh, Patrick, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. So before you go, can you tell us where people can find and connect with you and where they can find out more information on Warrior Scholar Project?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to go to our website, warrior-scholar.org, and if they want to connect with me personally, there's an Our Team section where it has the list of all of our staff bios, and you can just click on the link, and it'll connect right to me. I know I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't know how many. There's a lot of people with my last name, so maybe. But the other way is my email, right? Trujillo@warrior-scholar.org.
Okay.
That's the simplest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information. And Patrick, thank you so much for sharing all that you did today. It was amazing, great information, and we'll make sure we get the word out for everybody to check out Warrior Scholar Project.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for joining us for this Tactical Treasures podcast. We just finished up an amazing conversation with Patrick Trujillo, who is a United States Marine Corps veteran where he deployed 5 times, twice in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. He is now the Warrior Scholar Project's Marketing and Communications Manager. Warrior Scholarship Project is a 501c3 nonprofit that equips service members and veterans for success in higher education, and it is a community grounded in authenticity, compassion, and inclusivity. Warrior Scholar Project's mission is to ensure that every degree seeking enlisted veteran succeeds in their pursuit of higher education. Since its founding in 2011, more than 2,500 student veterans have participated in Warrior Scholar Project's Academic Boot Camp, its flagship program. The immersive college preparatory experience, hosted in partnership with leading universities nationwide, helps veterans prepare for the culture transition from the military to academia. To learn more, go to warrior-scholar.org. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget, You can find Tactical Treasures Podcast on all your favorite podcast streaming platforms, as well as American Grit and our dedicated YouTube channel. We are now airing on Reese Across America Radio on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern for the encore. You can also find Reese Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. We're also proud to share that our JDog Foundation is a Reese Across America sponsorship group. For each $17 Veterans Wreath you sponsor, $5 goes directly back to the JDog Foundation, whose mission is to prevent veteran suicide and heal veterans' mental health and PTSD. You can donate right now at reaseacrossamerica.org/JDog. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again on another podcast real soon. Bye-bye now.